but I wonder what was up with that.
Okay. Hey everyone, Pat Belliveau here. Take two. Um, I haven't posted a video in a long time here, so just cause that's life gets in the way sometimes. But here I am back again, and with a little spin on the next number of videos we're going to do is kind of like going to be like a video series, um, not like Howard Stern show kind of thing, but we're going to do we're going to do. Okay, see this guy on the left here who's falling asleep as I talk. He's a friend, a colleague, mentor, obviously a bad influence, as you can tell. Trumpet player and music professor, Greg Bush in Nanaimo, BC, on Vancouver Island. Professor at Vancouver Island University. Somebody I've known. I was thinking about this, and we go back, I think, 36 years. Imagine that.
At least.
Yeah.
Well, how old are you?
I'm about to turn 54 in January.
Before. Take it away.
So go ahead.
I still say you were 15 when I met you. You seem to think you were a little older, but
I seem to think I was 17, but okay. Well, I thought it was 1984.
What grade were you in when you were 17?
11.
Well, it's possible because you definitely weren't in grade 12.
Yeah. Well, and the reason why I want to shoot this first video is to kind of get whoever's watching acquainted with who you are and how I know you and all that stuff. So maybe I'll just launch into, and then you can comment as necessary, cut me off as necessary. But this is what I remember. Oh, I'm slowing down. Look at that. Whoa, I'm getting faster. Okay. Hello. This is what I remember. In my high school, Central Memorial High School in Calgary, our jazz band director was a friend of yours by the name of Dave Rice, who was the best man at your wedding. Yes?
Groomsman.
Oh, groomsman. Okay. At your wedding.
Dave Luker was best man.
Okay. Dave was a saxophone player. He was my first jazz teacher. And he was running the jazz band at the school. And I remember he brought you in as a clinician. And I was playing bari sax in the band. And I remember, I don't remember a hell of a lot, especially now that I'm pretty much mid-50s, but I do remember certain details. And I remember playing a funk tune that Dave picked, written by Pete Coleman. Do you know that name?
I do.
Pete Coleman, called Beefsteak Charlie's.
Absolutely.
And I remember playing that. And after we were done playing that, you walked up to me and said, hey, would you be interested in coming out and playing in my big band? We rehearsed, was it Saturday afternoons or Sunday afternoons?
Probably Sunday afternoons.
Because it was at the band F102 at the U of C first. And then it moved to the Kick Building, I believe.
I think that's right.
Yeah. And if I know for a fact I was in grade 11. That was 1984.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's when I just joined the Wednesday Night Big Band, which you were in as well, as a matter of fact, I think.
Correct.
And I remember with both of those bands, all of a sudden I'm in and amongst people who have a tone, that are playing the notes stylistically correctly and all that stuff. And I lost it. Well, internally, of course, I was hoping that I kind of looked like the duck who was calm and collected above the water, but paddling like hell underneath. So that's kind of what that was like for me. So I'm trying to think of other, some of the Calgary folks that might be watching this, details of your band. I remember the sax section was Jim Ruth on lead, Steve Potter on second alto, Dave Rice on first tenor. Dennis Jackson was playing second tenor when I started, and he sat right next to me.
Okay.
Yeah, and I remember, I think the only trombone player I remember was Mark McGregor. I don't remember who else was in the band. Might have been Joy Archer on bass, because she was playing bass in Wednesday Night Big Band.
Yeah, she may have been in that for a bit. I want to say Gord, was his last name Rogers? He was in the Army band. He might have come out.
Yeah. And Rob Brown, was he another one? He was from the Army band as well.
Yeah, he would have been in that because he was the one that he was in the military band, and he got them to to do a commission where I wrote a chart for him for the concert band, for the military concert band.
Okay. Okay.
And I had to go in and talk to the guy, and he said we agreed on a price and everything. And then just as we were ready to wrap it up, he's like, "And that includes the copying, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, whatever." I just wanted.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So it would have been scale for the chart, and then since I had to do the copying, it was no longer scale.
Right. Oh, there you go. Yeah. There was.
Us buggers, our Canadian tax dollars at work. Well,
Yeah.
my recollection of this, I mean, you got a lot of the information there. I was at Central Memorial before Dave.
I remember you telling me that.
Yeah, so it was me that brought him in.
Mm.
And so I guess when I first started, I moved to Calgary in 1980. And then it would have been probably 2 years after that, 1 year, 2 years. I started, yeah, it took me a while to get known, get my name out there. And I started doing clinics. And somebody would have referred me to Central Memorial to go do a trumpet workshop or whatever. And I went in and I did a couple. And then Bob Eklund seemed to take a bit of a shine to me, which was fine. He was very nice. I still think I have very fond memories of Bob Eklund. And then I guess he found out or figured out I was quite interested in jazz and stuff like that. And he's like, "Would you like to do the jazz band on a regular basis?" And I was like, "Yeah, heck yeah." So probably you would have been in junior high school then, maybe, or what grade did Central start? 9?
10.
10. Okay, so then it's quite possible that you hadn't hit Central yet. And then I did it for a couple of years, and then I was starting to get busy doing other things, and I was like, do I want to be committed to going in full time on a regular bit? Well, not full time, but I mean regular. Eklund had me going in like probably twice a week, 2 regular time slots,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he had me going in a third time to work with the trumpets. And then I started getting busy with other things, and I was like, well, maybe I should not be committed to something that regular. And then that's when Dave would have started doing it, and then I still would have been doing just the odd thing here and there at Central. And I remember having a hard time finding a Barry saxophone player for the band. And Dave kept saying, "There's this kid in Central, man. You get this kid." And I was like, "Really? We're trying to get a band here with pros, and they're going to be sitting next to a high school kid? How's that going to go over?" And he goes, "Well, probably." He had a very good point. He says, "Well, probably a whole lot better than an empty chair."
That's good.
Not
Yeah.
to take away, not
Yeah.
to take away
So
your.
at first I was a warm body. I get it. I get it.
Not to take away from your skills, because at 15 years old or however old you were freaking killing it. So I was like, "You got me on that one, Dave. Let's do it." And of course, you were super dedicated and super committed and smart enough to realize, wait a second, I'm in a good opportunity here. Better learn the freaking music. And to your credit, you did. You freaking laid it down. Always had a huge sound. So I guess Dave bringing me in was to hear you play, and then after I heard you, I was like, well, shit, yeah, why not?
Well, but you're also there to work with the trumpets too, I think, weren't you?
Probably.
And stuff. Yeah.
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 So
that was an audition for me, was it?
I guess it kind of worked. Well, I mean, Dave already auditioned, He kept bugging me, and again, the whole high school kid. But you played so well that afterwards, when you were in it, and the rest of the guys, I don't think they really looked at you as a high school kid as much as they looked at you as an up and coming young, very good saxophone player. So they were happy to be there. I had forgotten that Dennis Jackson was there.
Initially, yeah, he sat next to me.
Okay. I do have a picture somewhere. I'm pretty sure I have it in my jazz archives, as I call it. Picture of the band from around that time. Gosh, I forget where it would have been taken. Dave Edgar's in the band.
Yes. Dave took over from Dennis. I don't know exactly when, but I remember, if you remember, there was the club that you booked the band into that was down on Fifth Avenue, right next to the Telus Tower, the Music Box.
Yeah, that's right, the Music Box.
Yes, that was one out of a few venues. I was going to discuss some of those too, but I remember in that incarnation of the band, Dave Edgar sat next to me, because I remember when I shared that story on a video when there was a 96 bar Barry solo on There Will Never Be Another You that I opened up the chart and I just shit myself right there because it was just slashes and chord symbols. And of course, I didn't know what any of that meant. So I called you over and I said, oh, man, hello, like I can't do this. And I said, I don't know what any of this means. And you said, okay, I'm going to pass it off to somebody else now, but you're going to do this. I said, okay, but I need to know what this is like hieroglyphics to me. I don't know what this means, so I need help. And I think you passed it on to Dave next to me, and Dave said, I'll do it, Dave Edgar, and so
Yeah.
he did it. So and I remember that because we got together in the afternoon for a sound check and a run through of some tunes or something, and I think that was one of them that we ran through, and I don't think, in fact, I'm sure I didn't even know that there was going to be that solo in there. And that's when I said, okay, I need to get together with you to talk about what all this shit means because I just have no idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I know Dave took the solo because he was sitting beside me. So I know that there was a bit of a personnel change. And I know, again, for example, when the rhythm section in your band was Bob Erlinson on piano, I remember Andrew Carson on guitar, Doug Fox on bass, Dave Luker on drums, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Now, when Bob left, did Rod Schmidt take over from him? Is
Rod
that right?
played in the band for a little bit too, and then there was a period where I was having a hard time finding a piano player that would commit, and I think it was Andrew Carson between the two of us, or maybe his suggestion or whatever, and playing jazz guitar in a big band, if there's a piano player, is not the hippest thing to do. If all you're doing is playing Count Basie charts, they don't all want to do that. As much, it requires an awful lot of skill to do that. And I said, well, what about if we don't get a piano player? You carry the whole load. And he's like, oh, I'd be into that, because then he got to like comp and do all sorts of other, and not just sit there and go chug 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 chug, you know. So there was a period where there was no piano player. Yeah.
Okay.
In that chart that you mentioned, I mean, I was just starting to write big band charts, and that particular chart was kind of modeled or inspired by one of Rob McConnell's charts with the Boss Brass, because the solo section at the start of it would have been just whoever was soloing and guitar. The rhythm section.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that Another You had that, where you would have had the first chorus with just the guitar.
And that would have been even worse.
There you go. And I think that was kind of inspired by Darn That Dream, Rob's Darn That Dream, which was like, okay, it was a ballad, but pretty sure it was Darn That Dream. But I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, just a soloist with a guitar. I'm going to steal that idea. And then the other motivation was to do these things was the fact that that infamous band leader / tenor player, very good flute player in Calgary, that had a big band, who would not play my charts, you know. And I was like, well, fine then, I'll play my own charts. I'll start my own band to play my charts. And then eventually he started to acquiesce a little bit and play some charts. And I remember the shout chorus on that chart was brutal. And I remember as I was writing it, I was taking it to that band and I was showing it to Sandy Barter. And I was just I'm like, have a look at this. Is this manageable? And he's like, yeah, no problem. I was like, okay. So anyway, I finished the chart. You know, I would have been playing it with my band, with you, and I took it to the pro band. And after we played it down, Sandy turns to me. He's like, "What are you trying to do? Kill me?" I was like, "You may recall I asked you if it was manageable, you know." But lead trumpet players and their ego, you know. And then when push comes to shove, they want to bitch about it. So, but he played it. Of course, he was a strong player, you know. So yeah. Yeah, I don't know where that chart is. I wonder if I still have it.
Well,
I
and
mean,
it was like based on a Chet Baker, Jerry Mulligan recording, was it not? Because that's why there was the Barry solo in it.
a little bit, yeah. That would have been the other inspiration, was the Chet that quartet with Mulligan, and then also Thad Jones with Pepper Adams.
Right.
They're quintet, you know. So I mean, I knew that trumpet and Barry sax was the thing. So, you know, yeah. So I was inspired to do that.
And thusly, I mean, I know that I ended up at your house a whole bunch of times, and you gave me the Aversold, and and gave me a handful of examples of that tune off of recordings and stuff. Turns out it was the first standard I ever learned, out of necessity at first. But I mean, and also when you invited me down to Marty's, which I did make mention on a video that when you
Yes.
were playing at Marty's, and I came down there knowing two things: B flat blues and There Will Never Be Another You, and I sat in, did those two tunes, and then I sat down, and that was it. I mean, we had discussed that ahead of time, that there's no point in trying to play other stuff that you don't know or are barely familiar with, because that's not going to turn out well. So, and I've seen it many times over the years since then,
That's
and
right.
I'm just like, why do you put yourself in that kind of position? Just don't do it, because it never ends well. It never does.
I still have fond memories of that tune for the fact that, you were playing on it and the stories that accompany it. And also, that's the one I shot myself in the foot with, because I was playing in that Ray Lee Johansson big band, in Calgary. And Tim Rollins, the personnel manager for the symphony at
Yeah,
the time,
yeah.
percussionist, he came and he played the drums once or twice. We found out afterwards that the band leader was paying him, of course. The rest of us were not getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of get that, in hindsight. And even at the time, I was like, well, if you want to have a drummer, then he was paying him out of his pocket, I think. And then the Ray Lee didn't have an extensive repertoire of big band charts, so we would, sometimes play a small group chart during the set, and I played "There Will Never Be Another You" with just the rhythm section and on flugelhorn. And Tim Rollins came up to me and he goes, "Man, it sounds great. I love it's fun to play with you, and I like what you were doing. I played some good solos." He's like, "Do you play class?" I had no clue who he was. He's like, "Do you play classical?" And I was like, "Nah, not really. It's kind of focus on the jazz thing." He's like, "Yeah, okay." And then after the fact, I find out he's the personnel manager for the symphony. He's the guy that books the extras. I was like, oops.
Tim booked me for a lot of great gigs, I have to admit, for CPO, for light classics and for the Pops concerts.
So
So
I was like,
you would have
well,
been fine for Pops concerts.
I was like, so much for that. And then, yeah, I would have been fine for Pop's concerts.
Mm-hmm.
And then uh, I remember it well. I can actually picture the house and the kitchen and everything. And I had the kids that day. I was looking after the kids. I'm pretty sure I would have had the two of them, certainly Lauren. And then the phone rings and it's like, I don't know, it's like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock or whatever. And it's Tim Rollins. And he's like, kind of stuck for a trumpet player here. He's like, "Can you make a 1 o'clock rehearsal? And then you'll do the gig." And I was like, "Oh man, I'd love to." I said, "Can I have like 15 or 20 minutes to make some phone calls to find a babysitter for my kids? I got my kids today." And he's like, "I could let you have 15 or 20 minutes." I said, "I got to get on this." And I was like, "Fair enough." Man, I called everybody I could think of. Nobody was available to
Yeah.
babysit it. And I wasn't about to take my kids. So I called him back and I was like, "Can't find a sitter, Tim, you know. And he's like, "Yeah, I get that." He's like, "Okay, well, thanks for, being punctual and letting me know." And then, of course, I'm sure my name went to the bottom of the list again. So I never did get an opportunity to play as an extra with the symphony. Those darn kids, I've never let them forget.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
But
you should be rubbing that in even still.
that's right. He must be retired, Tim Rollins now.
He has, yeah, but he's still around. He's still around. I see him. I don't see him often, but I see him maybe once or twice a year.
Yeah, he's
So
probably my age or maybe just a tad older. He's got to be around my age.
I'm not. What is your age?
66.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm not sure actually. I'm not exactly sure how old he is.
I would have been about 26 or 27 at the time, and I thought maybe then that he was a couple of years older than me, but not much more than that. Could have been my age,
Mm-hmm.
could have been even younger and just looked my age or whatever, but certainly around the same generation. Yeah.
I think when he retired, he was 40 years in the CPO, or
Whoa.
something like that, or close to, if not 40 or just over. I
That's
can't
all.
remember exactly, but yeah, something like that.
So yeah, his pension be pretty good.
I would imagine.
I would think
Yeah.
the AF of M pension and stuff like that's supposed to be pretty good. And 40
Mhm.
years with a symphony that had what, 40, 45 week season?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So, I'm sure he's doing okay. And then Mike Estep recently too, within probably about 5 years ago now, because I remember he contacted me, was thinking of moving out here.
Mm.
And I hung out with he and his wife at least once, if not on two occasions when they came out. And what was really interesting is that there's a community concert band, the Nanaimo Concert Band, which is my understanding. I haven't researched it, but I believe them when they say longest running, consecutively running concert band in Canada is the Nanaimo Concert Band.
Okay.
There may have been other places where their concert bands were started early but didn't go consecutively. There might have been an odd hiatus here and there. And then, so, in terms of Mike looking for, because he didn't, quit playing the tuba, he just retired from the symphony. So he's looking for other things to do. So, of course, if he's going to move here, he's going to want to be, still playing. And so he contacts the Nanaimo Concert Band about the fact that he might be moving here and would there be an opportunity for him to play with the concert band. They told him he'd have to audition. I'm like, what are you
Really? Okay.
He's
For
like,
those of you who don't know, Mike Estep was the principal tubaist in the CPO for Calgary Philharmonic Orchestra for I don't know how many years, but a long time.
yeah, probably close to
Yeah,
40 as
I
well.
would think. Yeah, a long time, many decades.
So,
So yeah.
and so we were howling, and he's like, "Yeah, community bands." He says they're pretty territorial when it comes to their parts and stuff like that. So good friend of mine who's a retired RCMP officer, except he keeps going back to pick up work. He's a very strong trumpet player, and he was in the concert band. So I told him about it, and he's like, "They said what?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'll talk to those guys." He said, "They probably don't know who he is." I said, "No." I asked him. I said, "Did you tell them who you were and what you were retired from?" He's like, "Oh yeah." I told him I'd been, like, I don't know, 30, 40 years in the symphony as principal tuba. I like how it's principal tuba when it's the only one.
That's true. Yeah, I guess you can still use that term.
And then it's like principal bass trombone when Dave Reed went to bass trombone.
That's
And I asked him, I said,
who's the secondary
yeah, I said,
associate or whatever. Yeah.
to this day, I haven't heard Dave Reed in a very long time, but I doubt that I will ever hear somebody with a more beautiful
Yeah.
sound than
Yeah.
Dave Reed
Yeah.
on the trombone. Man, I was like,
Yeah. He still has the sweet tone.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm like, why would you move from second trombone to bass? I said, with that sound that you've got. He's like, more money. I was like, what? He says, it's a principal position. I said, it's the only position. He's like, don't tell them that.
Yeah, no kidding.
Like,
It'll be our little secret.
so good for you. And clearly he got the gig, so I'm sure that his sound transferred over to the bass trombone.
Mhm.
Is he still at it or is he
Oh
retired?
yeah, no, he's still at it, and his wife
Yeah.
Trish is still playing bass too.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
he's probably a bit younger. I would think he's a little younger than me. But
he just turned 60, I think, or so he's 60 or 61, I believe,
there
something like
you go.
that.
I thought he was a few years
Of
younger.
course, there's not a lot of playing going on now with the whole COVID BS and all that. So
Right.
there's nothing like that going on. So they're in and that's a household with them that they're both of them are in the symphony. So it's they're both of them are in the same situation as far as
Right.
in the arts kind of scenario. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna be tough.
I'm wondering if maybe we should wrap this one up and start with a part 2.
Yeah. How long
Perhaps
have you
just
been at this?
I need to set a stop because on my phone I can tell, but on
Okay.
here I don't. So I'll set a stopwatch
Okay.
on this next one just to make, because
I'm
I
sure
don't want it to be an hour-long thing. So
yeah, exactly. All right.
this is the end of part 1. There's going to be a part 2, so check for that, and we'll get right back here.